There's a scientist, Willoughby Britton at Brown, who did a study on groups of people who did their first 5-day retreats. And so they went through classical calming and then insight meditation, 4 foundations of mindfulness. So you see that, those are just thoughts, they're changing, anicca, then there's no self there. They deconstructed that. And that's kind of the insight. And 40% of them got flooded by their unconscious and had a terrible time because they weren't introduced to the solution to what you were saying before, like what's next? Once you deconstruct this and you're not this self and you have no will, then where am I operating from? Where's the new operating system? So that's why in the retreats that are more Mahamudra style, you start with similar calming practices, but then you almost introduce the solution first. And same in IFS, you recognize, are you aware that this is a part of you that's anxious? Yes. Can you ask it from some space? Now, how do you feel toward this from this awareness position? And do you feel, and then you actually have these positive qualities. So it's not like a mindful, non-judgmental, neutral witness. There's actually this self energy, which is from a greater dimension of you that's not a part of you. So that consciousness that is the most advanced consciousness is why I like IFS, because people can be introduced to have complex trauma, can be introduced to the nature of mind, which is the highest, or the pure awareness, or the, their true, authentic self in an hour. And it's what heals.
Right.
So, and then doing that relative, because otherwise the trauma, most people's trauma is bigger than their ego. In other words, you can do psychology forever, but you're going to keep getting kind of only deal with this so much today. Now I'll come back next week, and deal with a little more, and now I'll come back next week. And then, it pops up during the week and, because there's no that small self, which is trying hard to live this life, is not strong enough. It's to bear the full emotional life of a human being, because that's stronger. It's like a, storm cloud. It's just too big. It needs the sky. So the metaphor of this is you're trying to clean up this storm cloud and it just keeps getting overwhelming. So you have to step out into the sky, realize you're the sky, be aware as the sky, from the sky. And now the key move in this Mahamudra style is, and the sky is within the cloud and arising as the cloud. So now you're not bypassing, you've come back in a different kind of embodiment that can be with. So anything that's, upsetting and really big rage, fear, is just like, okay, it's like a loving sky. Okay, I'm with you. You can't hurt me. Sky can't be hurt. Storm, or you feel like an ocean with big waves. They're going to crash. Yep, right back into the ocean. Yeah, and it's just like, so those are the kind of metaphors that are simple to show how, this really needs to kind of upgrade.
Yeah. I've a lot of questions from what you said. Let's try to go through this systematically.
Okay.
And maybe this could also be a good juncture after I ask a couple of these questions to maybe go into a practice, perhaps.
Sure.
Actually.
Yeah.
But like when you said, like, and just for the record, I didn't set this up yet, but I have done IFS psychotherapy for a couple of years. Although, as a friend kind of pointed out to me, not super structured IFS, but kind of IFS flavored, but kind of IFS flavored kind of talk therapy. I'm interested now to actually go more into focused IFS, as a friend just suggested, and kind of understanding some of the metaphors more, and the exiles, firefighter stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not actually super familiar with yet. But that example that you gave, you have a part maybe that's anxious, and so
Mm-hmm.
and just for people, if this is confusing at all, like it's actually kind of very simple, just the basic
Yeah.
language here. When we just say parts, like it's just like pieces within us that like get activated or get kind of scratched by certain things, and there's certain kind of patterns that we have.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it could be fear or like desperation, like trying really hard. For some other people that I know, it's anger is like the big one that really comes up, or a sense of grief might come up. And so we have these different parts within us that kind of you could say predictably get activated in often social situations with other people, just colliding with
Yeah.
life in various ways, and it can activate those inner parts, and which suggests that
Yeah.
they need some healing.
Yeah. So I'll just give a little,
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
little macro, just because.
Yeah.
So there's the history of psychotherapy is really a parts based system. If you even start with Freud and Jung, but the common psychology of everyday cultures is, oh, I'm a person and I have feelings. So, I'm the one who's sitting in this seat in the middle of my head, and now I'm worried, and now I feel angry, and now I feel like, oh no, I shouldn't say that to the person. No, I want to say that to the person. That's me. So this inner dialogue or being of two minds is me, the person. I'm a ego or a self that has feelings. But even with Freud, he had id, ego, and superego, and he thought of them as billiard balls, so that the ego would get knocked out of the center and the superego would take over, and then the id would knock the superego out, and you're trying to get the ego back into the center. And then Jung talked about personas and the anima and the animus, kind of the masculine, feminine parts of us that would dialogue. And then he would talk about, these masks, persona as masks that would come on when you were the friend, and then you were at work, and then you were, the son or the, child, and then you were debating within yourself. You would have different personas talking to each other. So,
Yeah.
and then Gestalt became this. You would
And
actually.
by the way, one thing about the I've been getting deep into Carl Jung's theory on
Oh, yeah.
integrating the anima
Yes.
as the particular for young men, and how that's important
Yes.
to kind of avoid certain trappings of relationships, and romantic engagements. How it's crucial for one to integrate one's inner feminine part, which is known as the anima, to avoid some of those very predictable pitfalls that young men face.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's, we won't get into the social part of it, but,
Yeah.
With some of the model of masculinity today, as if you should be very masculine, you're rejecting your fullness. And then you get in these relationships with, that end up being extreme and don't work out as, for your full self. So really the Jungian work around that is really so important. And then
maybe we should have maybe you should take Andrew Tate as your new client.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That kind of,
that'd be a piece of work for you.
Or Hegseth or someone like,
Yeah, sure.
So then Gestalt, which became kind of the 60s version as we went to psychosynthesis and voice dialogue. And so I'm just naming these things. You don't need to know what they are, but it would actually take a part and put it in a chair. Say, okay, well, you ask that part of you to sit in the chair and you have a dialogue with it. So it would externalize these parts. So it's like, well, take the part that feels, worthless. And can you ask that part if it would sit there, and can you now ask it why it feels worthless? So you would literally separate out this. So all that to say that this is not, kind of some strange new theory that IFS have. They emphasize that ultimately the dimension that is aware of the parts is similar to what meditative consciousness has been describing, and they call it
Yeah.
similar to the Advaita, the Hindu self with a capital S, as opposed to ego manager, small self. So it's not just that you're not the small self or the ego, but that you immediately are this more loving, and that it has these qualities of compassion, clarity,
Knowingness.
courage, and courage has a ability to have intentionality. It's to move and act in the world, to choose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I appreciate you laying out this macro picture here. So the question I was going to ask you before is like when you say you gave the example, I think of an anxious part, and then like asking the anxious part or from the self,
Yeah.
what the self feels toward the anxious part. And so this is
Yes.
something that I've done in
Yeah.
psychotherapy. Like a fearful part or a desperate part, and like
Yeah.
looking at it and like what do I feel about it. So, and you said that's not the neutral, non-judgmental
Right.
observer, pure consciousness self. So then what is that? What is that self? And is that more of a that is more of a character? Like that's not
So
that's not the non-dual
so
pure
so
consciousness.
well, see, this is the thing: is there's if as I break down, and would be the next dialogue
Yeah.
to have with Sam or someone like that, is that it doesn't stop just at I'm a self trying to work with my feelings and emotions, and I'm not. Then in meditation you step up into a mindful witness. Oh, now I'm outside and I'm looking at thoughts, feelings, and sensations coming and going. So now to if you then look back behind the mindful witness, or open up to see what's aware of the mindful witness, you get to this pure awareness, or more spacious awareness. But then does it remain as witness consciousness, which is outside looking in, still looking this way, or it's what's called same taste? Is the awareness and the aliveness actually not two? So is there a kind of a interconnected or interdependent experience, which is what people have sometimes on psychedelics? They feel this interconnection or oneness, which is not a oneness like I am the I feel there's a interconnection. So even the word emptiness, which is used in Buddhism, means empty of a separate self. So for instance, everything there's no thing that's a separate thing. So a tree, there's no such thing as a tree, because a tree is dependent on water, earth, air,
Soil,
sunlight. So
yeah.
Empty means interdependent. It doesn't mean no self. So that's where there's confusion is. No will, no self, no, interdependent. Like keep going to this awareness that's interconnected with everything, so that you can still have an anxious part, and you can still have a part that's not anxious. And who's aware of both of them? Oh, well, I am. And how do you feel toward this anxious part? Not trying to make it stop, not trying to repress it, not trying to, what often is done in cognitive behavior, oh, it's just thought, or just try to create a positive thought. It's like, no, let this part, which is like how you felt as a kid that you weren't allowed to feel, like just be with it and just listen to it, because now you're big enough and loving enough to be with it yourself. And it can go like, yeah, well, I don't feel so, I'm a little scared, this isn't going to work out. And you're like, okay, I understand that. That makes sense to me, but I'm here. And why don't we do this together and see how it works out?